At one time we were ruled over by kings and queens. The peasantry didn't have to make its own decisions. The royals and the nobility would make the main decisions for everyone else. All the people had to do was whatever expertise that happened to be handed down to the family in order to survive. Now, not that it was as simple as all that, it never is. But that's the way things ran for a very long time. Now, all of a sudden, the merchants have basically taken control of the kings and queens and the nobility. Today's nobility are the merchants. And it comes with the promise that anyone can become a successful businessman. Like in America, they say it's the land of opportunity. And they refer to the American dream and all that. You know, you can be a quote-unquote nobody, I hate that term, but unsuccessful, and then become very successful, in theory. But actually what's required to become successful usually is lack of humanity. Although dumb luck comes into it, talent, connections come into it, but more often than not you have to be a real swindler. Even in political parties, there's a lot more backstabbing than people realize. When it gets on television, some political figure has been caught doing something corrupt or something really stupid, it's usually because someone in their own party has set them up. And so thus someone got promoted, or whatever they call it in the party. They got to take someone else's place, move on up. And that's part of the dirty favors for favors and whatnot that goes on. So even in the political parties, it's ugly. And it's all a game. You're just supposed to be a player. And if you're not, you go against the grain, you rock the boat, and your life is so much more difficult. The problem with the game, besides the fact that it's, as I've said before, it's overly ambitious. It has to come to an end eventually. Is the psychological, spiritual ramifications of it, including the fact that it alienates us from ourselves and from each other. Division. If someone asks you, how are you doing? Do they really want to know how you're doing? Or don't they just want the textbook answer, I'm doing fine, and how are you? As a social experiment, next time someone asks you how you're doing, try being honest and just saying, actually, I feel like crap, how are you? Try it. It's interesting to see their reactions like that, to see how sincerely they meant that question. We really need to start looking into ourselves and each other and questioning what is real and what is not. Everywhere I look, I see people playing the game. And by that, I don't just mean going through the motions. I mean pretending that they're fine and that they're happy and that they're doing well, even though, especially right now, for obvious reasons, a lot of people are not doing so well. But everyone, or I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people are still pretending to be doing just fine. They're playing the act. They're putting on the brave face, so to speak. And so, everyone's playing the game together, and thus are divided from each other because they're not being real with each other. So who you are is something you keep to yourself, and you're able to open up to, hopefully you're able to open up to people that you know in real life, that you know very closely. And for everyone else, you've got to play some kind of act. That's what they expect of you. I've seen this my whole life. And I refuse to be anything other than what I am. I'm me, and I don't always make sense, and I'm moody. Sometimes I'm in a more artistic mood, sometimes I'm in a more mysterious, kind of distant mood, sometimes I'm more outgoing, sometimes I'm silly. We're all complex, more complex than what we might seem like on the surface. I believe every person is a lot more complex than they appear. But a lot of the time we pretend to be simpler than we are because we're trying to play the game. Trying to pretend, trying to be a player. And it divides us. And I think there are two good solutions to the problem. And one is to obviously inspire each other about being honest and being real, which is all about being honest with yourself. That's how you do it. You're honest with other people, in my opinion, by consequence. The honesty is with yourself. To everyone else, it's by consequence. If you're dishonest with yourself, you're dishonest with everyone else by consequence. It's your life, it's your world, and no one else can live your life for you. You have to put yourself first. You have to deal with your own problems first and foremost. That's not selfish, if you know what I mean. It is self-interested, sure, but it's not anything that's wrong. You have to look after your own problems. You've got to live your own life. You can't just put other people ahead of yourself. I've done that times before in my life. Put other people ahead of myself. Big mistake. Big mistake. You have to deal with your own problems, and you have to be real with yourself. Your duty then is to be real with everyone else. And even if you are real with yourself, it can be difficult to be real to other people, because so many people are playing the game and they don't want you. They just want the player of you. They don't want you. They don't want to hear from you. My advice, as hard as it is just to be as much of yourself as you can, as you have the courage and the strength to be. How you doing? Not too well, actually. I feel like crap. How are you? Anyway, so this whole thing about enlightenment coming, 2012, as some people believe, positive enlightenment. Some people have been talking on YouTube about bringing governments down and all of that. Like, okay, there's a little bit of a revolutionary in me, believe it. But I'm kind of with the Who on this one. Here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. What has changed? You can take all the politicians out, put new people in. Who are they? Aren't they human? Are they players? Which most people are these days. What's really going to change? Nothing. We need a spiritual revolution. And by that I mean these walls, these barriers, these divisions need to go down. And we'll do this by inspiring the truth and by pointing out the problem. Because it's like a psychological problem that you have, where you have a nightmare over and over again. I don't know, some people have a fear of small spaces, so they might have a nightmare where they have small spaces, I don't know, nightmare kind of thing. And until they deal with that problem, they'll keep having that same nightmare. That's just an example. The only way for them to get over is to face it and to accept it. In the same way, we need to face the fact that we are divided from each other. We need to point it out, and to point it out, and to point out all these divisions to make it clear. That way we can see how ridiculous it is, and psychologically, subconsciously, kind of wake up to realizing that this isn't how we should be living this world, experiencing this life. Just a thought. Peace.